express my concerns about what you are attempting to do. You're going to affect the whole city, whether you believe it or not. Grants, everything. You can tweak it. You don't have to destroy it. I mean, I don't know why you haven't thought of that. You're either going to throw it away or you're going to keep it. Tweak it. That's the thing to do. Don't throw it away. You have to remodel your home. You don't tear the house down just to redo your kitchen. You redo the kitchen. Same thing with this. Redo the ordinances or whatever it is, the codes, whatever. Please. That is all I have to say.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, next up, we just have some roundtable discussion amongst council members. Council, did you have anything that you would like to bring up today? I know Joel and I had talked a little bit ago about a way to kind of improve this section of the agenda, and perhaps we rename it to Q&A with the city manager. So if there's any like specific questions that you have for Joel, anything you want to follow up on, we can do that as well. But if there's just anything somebody wants to bring up, now would be the time.
So I'll start off. I saw the letter from CL, which is really good. Really excited to see that. Have you been in contact with them at all to hear about specifics or timelines or what they're thinking with Lakeshore construction? Lakeshore, is that right?
Lakewood Construction?
Lakewood
Yeah.
construction.
So the answer is yes. Council, the intent is to develop 101 Brady. So I have been in constant contact with CL, Suburban Ends, and Lakewood, the original three. When it appeared that financing for CL wasn't going to be a reality, I shifted the discussion to, well, how do we make this a reality? Because I believe the intent of council is development of a hotel at that site as, shown to this council. Lakewood Construction worked with Safe Harbor to get a purchase agreement for the old Perigo Plant 3, I think it's called, the maintenance building. So Lakewood stepped up to the plate with them. And then we toured it this summer, Parker and I did, with representatives from Lakewood and Suburban, just prior to them agreeing to, sign that purchase agreement. So that's real good for, Safe Harbor, a nonprofit here. And then with this potential, transfer, I reached out to our city attorney, just saying, hey, this seems like this might be, an option we have to look at. And he responded, yeah, your deed, your purchase agreement doesn't limit their sale, and the warranty, the deed we have that we sold, the deed to the property that's in their name has a bunch of deed restrictions on it. You can't do A, B, C, or D. And he goes, so you have all of your restrictions still on there on the deed, including that start construction date by June of 2022, right? Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah. It's a constant conversation I'm having with them.
Awesome. So Lakewood would only have 8 months or so to break ground.
Yep.
That's a pretty quick turnaround for them.
That is a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, are they gonna come to us and ask for an extension probably?
Probably. If
Yeah.
I'm reading what's that phrase, the tea leaves or whatever, I'm not even sure if that's appropriate. So please let me know if I'm using the wrong language. Just smack me really hard.
Might be walking a line, but it's all right.
Yeah, thank you. If I am reading the room, I have a lot to learn in life. If I'm reading the room, yes, I believe they probably would come and ask for a small extension.
Oh,
The good thing is where CL was falling short was their financial partners in Illinois would not lend in a market that they did not understand, which is Michigan. And then the Michigan financial institutions would not lend to an Illinois-based developer for which they did not fully understand. And then the truth is, at least I believe the truth is, COVID probably has had a bigger impact on financing in the tourism hospitality industry than even I want to believe. So I think they just kind of run into a little bit of a headwind with that.
And so my last thing, just for my clarification, so Lakewood is the construction company, Suburban Inns will be the management company?
So Lakewood Construction would be the owner, so the developer, they probably do self-construction as well. So they would probably take over those two ends. Hotel operator, Suburban Inns was at the table. And I have no reason to believe it still wouldn't be Suburban Inns.
I just wanted to have those straight in my head.
Yeah, one thing I would, and I don't know much about, the hotel industry or anything like that, but I've got to believe, like most industries, they have their projects planned 2 to 3 years out. Companies know when they're doing their additions and their expansions and stuff like that. So, we have told Lakewood from day one, when they started this discussion of what if we take over this project and CL just can't get a grip going. Our goal is hotel develop there, construction starting in 2022, period. And what I tell a lot of people, I don't care, who I'm dancing with right now, but at the end of the night, we want to be dancing with someone, and we're not going to stick around. Yes, Rachel, I saw your blinking of eyes. We just need a yardstick for you to smack me. Wrong phrases. I apologize. Yeah, wrong phrases. So the goal, I think, from council is you want to see a hotel developed on that lot that resembles the approved plans that happened in January. You don't want to see a hotel come in, with a bunch of the original design elements, which was more ephes than brick. You want, it to face the riverfront. You want it to open up on the riverfront. You want a mixed use with, the bar that they were proposing. I don't know if you really care if there's an indoor-outdoor pool. I'm not, I wasn't picking up as that was a hot one that council wanted to make sure happened there, but you wanted it to connect to the public space and flow that way. So that's the message I'm taking to Lakewood. And I'm very thankful that Lakewood is extremely passionate about this project still. And I think we're fortunate that Brad Van Melle, the son of Craig Van Melle, a former mayor here, is, lifelong Allegan boy, is, fighting tooth and nail to make this a reality. He works for Lakewood Construction. Does those answer your questions, Roger? Yes. All right, thank you.
Anyone else have anything to discuss about that update we received from CL, or any other questions for Joel about that particular project? No? Rachel, did you have something else? Just a random. Okay.
It may have been included in some report, but while walking this morning, I noticed that the, this side of the parking lot, where the orange cones are, I don't know what we're calling that little area that's not,
The little bump out area, that little
but it's
peninsula.
still underwater, so what's going on?
So
And I know it rained last night,
it
but
did rain last night, but that's not why.
water in
Yeah.
there than what the rain provided.
So where we are with that is we've had the construction company come back, relay the curb and the asphalt to the appropriate elevation. And then I made the executive decision that we are going to fill in that grass area with concrete to have it also flow to the thing, because for one reason or another, it's just not draining the way it needs to drain.
So that is legit water over, since that's been filled in. It's not irrigation,
It's not irrigation. The irrigation is turned off there. And so
That's a lot of water.
it is a lot of water. And it was full of what they call mud wasps earlier this summer, because mud wasps go to wet areas and burrow in. So we had some mud wasps just hanging out. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, we have the ability, the capacity to do concrete for that work. And we just need to fix that.
Have we made sure there's not some sort of leak in the water pipes there, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we ran a whole system through
Yeah, I
the
know.
irrigation. Yeah, what was explained to me is what was explained to me was the idea, not the idea, but, it's a high water table in that area.
So this morning, in walking, you can see where the parking lot's higher and the water is running to that location. In addition to, I feel like the water that was stagnant, that kind of sat there all summer long. But this morning, it was definitely, you know, it's not like running, but it's a slow trickle to that area. It was quite full.
Okay. Tracy, did you have anything? No? How about you, Teresa? Dave?
I was curious if we have a current status on the Iron Bridge, like where that is.
Yeah, so the first, so that's being bid or let, as they say, through MDOT's bidding process. The first bids came in quite high. I think I informed council of that in a report. I believe it's being relet in November or December. One of those 2 months, they're gonna relet it, and we'll do construction in the spring. We're hoping by moving the construction start date to spring, contractors might be a little lenient and on their costs. We feel that trying to get it done this fall, had contractors submitting bids saying, if we get this project, awesome, and we'll work a bunch of guys overtime to get it done. But if we don't get it, it's also not a big deal. So we're hoping spring will be a better result for us.
Have we gotten into discussions yet with the state highway project, that alignment with Hubbard, and how, I mean, on the topic of like ingresses, egresses for the city and traffic flow?
Sure.
Like, are both those happening at the same time? Do we know where
Yep.
traffic's going?
Yeah,
Okay.
so those are happening right now. Doug Codsbin, our DPW director, he's also our street administrator for MDOT, and myself have been in on a handful of conference calls with MDOT and Abed Marsh as our engineer of record. We have looked at the idea, so the city's first plan, back in 2008, 9, or 10, when they started acquiring the houses along Hubbard, was a realignment. This year, when we did our first realignment study, we still have significant issues with left-hand turns coming from M89 north onto Ely. We have a backup that happens that is not appropriate. So someone asked the question, what about a roundabout in that location? And so we've, are in the process of designing what a roundabout would look like at that location. That's gonna be a costly, roundabouts aren't cheap, so that's gonna be costly for us to pull that off. We are still looking at 23, 24 for our construction, schedule. We just got yesterday from Tim Drews, I'm gonna butcher what this was. It was a bunch of data on the modeling of what the roundabout would do for AM and PM, traffic times. In the conversations with MDOT on the construction costs, they mentioned that it'd be a 50-50 project, or the city might have to pay a little bit more because we have more legs coming into the roundabout than what they would have, to which I responded, well, we'll look at the traffic counts because this really should be based on traffic counts. And the truth is, you're the entity that designed M89, M40 to just empty into this one location with, 2 other local roads. So you really should bear the brunt of this because there's more vehicular traffic on M89 and M40 than there is on Hubbard. I apologize. So, we've been having that conversation, with MDOT since the beginning of the summer.
When that intersection closes, whether we're doing the roundabout or the realignment, is there, I mean, the logical rerouting would be people going across the Iron Bridge. Is there been much like design consideration or what that would look like, or would that not be where we would reroute people?
So in our conversations with the engineers, is for exit, once that intersection is closed off, it's not an exit right now. Right now, we just have the Iron Bridge, Trowbridge, Cutler, and then on the north side of the downtown, we have Walnut, Chestnut, and Water. So the Iron Bridge is gonna be designed as one way into the city, and it will stay one way into the city.
Yeah, I mean, like, so traffic's coming up on 89. is there gonna be a time when they aren't gonna be able to continue through that intersection and we'll have to take a detour?
Yeah, so the detour will probably push them onto the bridge and then around to, Water Street or, Water to Cutler.
Okay,
I mean, those are things we're gonna have to, cross because with the gully between Eagly and M40, there's really not a stretch over, or the Kalamazoo River. We can't send people down Fifth Street.
yeah.
Probably build a pretty cool jump, but I don't know if people can get the distance to land on the Thomas over
Not a risk
there.
we wanna take, no.
Yeah, so it is going to be hinky. I wouldn't be surprised if MDOT tries to do a long detour
Yeah,
and go out to 26th Street
yeah,
and push people down 26th Street to Hooker, to Eastern, and do it that way. Yeah, a long bypass. When it comes time for us to do that work on that intersection, which is coming soon, it's going to be, the engineers are going to have their hands full trying to figure out what's the best way to move people around during that construction season.
yeah. Okay,
And I just don't know I don't know what the answer is going to be.
all right, yeah, just curious what
Yeah.
the current state was.
Yeah, Joel Dye's going to go down the bridge to Brady, to Locust, to Cutler, to my house. But I'm fortunate, I live right in town, so.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get from, Plainville to Holland or Hamilton, it'll be a different route you're going to have to take, and it won't be an easy one.
Sure.
Thank you. I don't really have any much discussion, but just to ask, like, how did these wonderful fall decorations come to be that are downtown? I don't recall ever seeing those in the past. Is that you, Parker? Or,
Yes.
well, it looks great. So, yeah, I wasn't quite sure if like the city was doing that or if, the merchants were spearheading that or how that came about, but.
There's Parker Johnson walking in my office, said, "Do we have any money to make our town look pretty for fall?" And I said, "We have money, just don't go crazy." And he did all the work himself.
Oh, wow.
You probably had a family friend help.
I did.
Well, you succeeded because it looks really, really beautiful. I
Thank
love
you.
it. So thank
Good.
you. Definitely improved because with the gray and all the leaves falling and stuff, it's something pretty to look at. So appreciate that. Anybody else? Anything? No? Okay, so it's about 5:50. We'll go ahead and move on to the discussion regarding the elimination of the Allegan Historic District.
All right, I'm going to get this kicked off, and then hopefully the majority of the time will be discussion amongst council. I will be available to answer any questions you may have. Again, at a high level, this established the district, the commission, and the Allegan Historic Districts. There's a handful of dates we have. And we can go back to 84 when they did the survey, 87 when they were registered in the National Register of Historic Places. We have 7 historic districts, as you can see on the screen. That map should look familiar to you. We have 8 historic sites. There's some are individual properties owned by private residences, or like our chapel at the Oakwood Cemetery is a site. There's approximately 420 properties in the city of Allegan that are, fall under, one of these districts or sites. We do have an Allegan Historic District Commission that meets monthly. One thing I want to point out to you, to just remind council, and we're going to see if this works, but I don't know if it will. Oh, there we go. So this is a spreadsheet that was downloaded this afternoon from the national, or the, what happened? Yeah, I got it, buddy. That's all right. Yeah, I'll figure it out. There we go. Let's do this again. So we downloaded this afternoon. This is all the properties or districts that are listed in the National Historic Register. So a handful of the sites, the district of Downtown Allegan Historic District, also known as Old Town. It sometimes goes by Old Town. A couple sites, the Griswold Civic Historic District, a couple more sites, the Marshall Street Historic District, a couple more sites, Pritchard's Historic District, a couple more sites are listed. The Second Street Bridge, which is one we don't talk about much, you can see that one was listed in 1980. So when that restoration happened, or before that restoration happened, they had that thing listed as a separate site well before any of the other sites or districts were created in the city of Allegan. Oh, way before the HDC was formed. If you click on, one of these links, this goes to the database that they have, that I now have to hop over here, slide over here. And I believe most of you have played around in this, National Registry to see what says, what goes on. This is the Oakwood Cemetery Chapel, the paperwork that had to be filled out, that called out what happened here, et cetera. I'm going to try to find the right row for us that works. So 39,859, it looks like. There we go. It says Old Town District right there. So this is the Old Town District. This is most of the downtown ones. This should be loading up pretty soon for us since it's a large district. It takes a while to load. You can see it was received in 1987. Gives you the history. All the following structures contribute to the district's historic character. All are brick commercial structures unless otherwise indicated. So it goes right down 107 Brady, 109, 134, 135, 136. And so I think, Delora, when you emailed me and said, can we get a list of all the properties that contribute per the register? And I said, yeah, we can, put this list together, but, this is where you would find this stuff. Here are the structures that do not contribute. 108, 155, 132 through 136, et cetera. So in my report, so when council last meeting, directed the city manager to look into the process to deestablish. In my report, I outlined what I did since that time. I contacted our city attorney, and I said, council's looking at this. We've been discussing it at various stages, I'd say for at least 2 years. Either 3 years. Yeah, sorry, Tracy. For at least 3 years, we've been discussing it at various stages. The Historic District Commission has been discussing this. Council's brought it up a couple times during strategic planning sessions. It's never listed as a goal, but it's been on a radar. He responded with his, information to me, which is there's really 2 steps, and you saw that in the report to him in your regular packet, which is 1 is repeal the ordinance, and then 2 is design or appoint a study committee to review everything and decide where you want to land after you do that. I shared with you information what a township on the east side of the state did. Theirs was, repeal the ordinance. That was also in your packet, I believe. I'm seeing heads shaking yes, so I was wondering if I should share what another township did, or a township did, but it did make the packet, so you did see that. And then I also reached out to the State Historic Preservation Office. So we call it SHPO for short. That's how you probably have heard me talk about it in the past. So SHPO responded, immediately, as I expected, their response would be, well, that's not good because they're into historic preservation. I also believe that I'm a preservationist. That's why we bought on Cutler. And it's why, we chose to paint our house, last summer instead of coming in and asking to put vinyl up. Preservation is important, personally to me. They kind of restated, you could just repeal the ordinance as your process. They stated, commercial properties that earn income would still be eligible for the federal tax credit program. They then said that the residential properties wouldn't be eligible. To which I responded to him, if you read that email, the way I read it is, if it's listed in a district that's in the National Register, it would still be eligible for the single, the residential would still be eligible for the State Historic Tax Credit Program. And he responded, as you saw in the email, yes, you're correct. That's also, they would, so the property owners, since we are listed in the National Register of Historic Places, they would still be eligible. What we wouldn't be eligible for is the certified local government grants that we have received over the past 20-some years. And you saw that in the email. And he went to, I would say, almost a painstaking, explanation of the grants we have received. We have received grants for 2 properties, the Griswold and the Regent Theater. And they listed all the different, things. We have we have received $200,000 in the past 20-some years through that certified local government program. We received $100,000 most recently for the tuck pointing of the Griswold Auditorium that was done in 2017. So of that 200,000, half of it was received, within the past, couple years, past 4 years, and 17. So that's where I want to be very clear with council, because I know we've received a few emails. Council, you've received a few emails. I did send a letter out to all the properties that we have addresses for. We only received 7 letters back. So I would say this went out and was, covered well for people who live in the district. I've received, in that letter, individuals were encouraged, if they felt, to email city council, or they could just call me if they wanted to talk to a person. So I'm not sure if you guys have had side conversations with other people about the letter. I know you guys are connected to your constituents, so they could talk to you. I received 4 calls, 3 calls. I'm trying to think of what's on my whiteboard.
Yeah, I want to say it was 3 to 4.
Yeah, 2 in favor, I think it was 3, because 2 were in favor, 1 was against. The 2 in favor, the gentleman lives on Marshall Street. It's the last house in the district as you're going towards McDonald's or PNC Bank, so on the other side of the Robinson Manor. Very passionate that the district remains. I received a phone call from a lady who lives on Trowbridge, wants to see the district remain because it's nice to go for walks around town and see the nice houses. And then I received a phone call from a husband and wife who live on Trowbridge on the other side of M89 Cedar Street, and was very adamant that nobody's going to tell them what they can and cannot do to their house. And what are you trying to do, run Allegan into the ground by putting all these restrictions on us? So, some people like going for walks and seeing the nice houses, and some people were very much personal freedom and, this is my structure, and they already look run down to begin with. And then I'm sure you've received, but I wanted to just update you on what's come through my office. I did have a gentleman stop me during the open house for Jim Richardson. And he wanted to let me know that, if we get rid of the districts, we're going to lose all the money that we've been getting over the years for our districts. So that's all I have to kick the discussion off.
Thanks, Joel. Okay, council, what are our thoughts? Anyone want to start with any feedback that you've received? I know that we've kind of sent anything we've received personally to Joel, and he's disseminated it to everybody. I've tried to keep a little bit of, math, and it was about 20% in favor of keeping it and 80% in favor of eliminating, from what I have seen come through. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Go
so
ahead,
I'll start.
Roger.
Just to get the conversation going. So I had conversations with the owners of 4 different properties on Marshall Street today and just reached out to them and asked what they thought about this now that the letter's gone out. And all of them were in favor of getting rid of the historic district. They felt like it was too restrictive, and they didn't like those restrictions on their properties, so they were all in favor and wanted me to pass that on to council. Having said that, I'm just gonna give my 2 cents as I've just been processing this. So, I know what we're talking about is anecdotal, right? We're not doing actual research, but it does seem like most of the people that we're hearing from want to get rid of it. What I don't want us to do is to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And is there, I know what Nick sent us, the city attorney sent us, about sort of getting rid of some of the stipulations on what you can do or what you can't do with your home, while still keeping the historic district. Does that allow us to still preserve the things that we want to preserve? And so I just don't want us to go, yeah, we should just get rid of it, and then we get rid of it, but I also don't, I do know that there are people who are not making changes to their home because either they can't afford it or they don't want to afford what it's going to take to restore it in a historical way, and I would rather have them be able to maintain their home if we didn't have the restrictions. So my thought is, and I know this has been brought up before, but can we identify actual historic homes or actual historic sites? And I don't know who is qualified to do that. It's not me, but can we do that and then revise the process and the restrictions to say, to make them more user-friendly, but to say, because we always throw up the Delano one or the Jade Inn, like, none of us wants that demolished. Like, we would want some sort of fail-safe to make sure that that building stays there and doesn't get aluminum siding, because that's happened. Like our old house on Cutler, 204 Cutler, where Kathy lives now, is this gorgeous historic home with yellow aluminum siding. Like, well, that shouldn't have happened. And we don't want to see that happen to some of these others. So can we relieve the burden on the majority of our people, but still maintain the historicness? Because there are some gorgeous historic homes that we don't want to see unhistoric. I don't know the right word for that. You know, so that's just I would like us to have that conversation.
Thanks, Roger. I'm going to go just back and forth here. Rachel, go ahead.
No,
Did you have
I
any-
mean, it's kind of like, I guess for lack of a better comparison, you always have the opportunity to eat healthy, right? You can do it whenever you want. You don't need somebody telling you to do it. So if you want to preserve your historic home, you preserve your historic home. That's how I feel. I don't feel like you need somebody telling you to do that. So if we're really worried about preservation, then we have to have rules in place to preserve the homes. And not with, well, this house was built in 1900s and yours is 1850s. So 1900s, you can use modern materials. 1800s, you guys don't get to. I mean, that is, to me, that is the real bulk of the issue with this entire program, is it has never been fairly applied across the board. That's the issue. It's not vinyl windows, in my opinion. It's not vinyl siding. It's not whether you have a plastic column or a wooden column. It's the fact that those that be on those committees pick and choose who they're going to allow to have certain materials. And it's very privileged if you're on the right side of the privilege.
I can speak to that, because, so my in-laws' former home, I am still very upset since the HDC gave them permission in the 90s. So the homes up on Davis Street so my in-laws' house, former house, was next to the Pritchard house. All of those homes, the front of the homes face that hill. My father-in-law has been in a wheelchair since he was 12. In the 90s, he wanted an elevator because he did not want to stop being able to go up to a second story, which he could have had a bedroom on the first story, but, you know. So they allowed them to rip off the whole front porch of that home And now there is an elevator shaft on the outside. And to me, that isn't preservation. That was Binky Perigo came in front of the HDC and, oh, he's in a wheelchair. Yes, go ahead and do that. And they destroyed the front of that house. So that's where it kind of goes back to the, what does the community want out of this? You know, I don't think a historic district is one thing. Historic district commission is another thing. I don't think this community really wants people telling them what to do. They want they want to have it. They like the feeling of it, but at the end of the day, you know, you're going to continue to have these where, you know, even on Cutler Street, beautiful homes, there's some of them that have siding on them now, some of them that have vinyl windows. So they're beautiful. They still look beautiful. They still, I can look at them and go, oh, there's a historic home, but it is not the original wood siding. It's not the original, you know, like wood windows that were reglazed. So either you're all in or you're all out. And I'm kind of like with Rachel, I think that, I mean, if somebody's going to preserve their home, they're going to preserve their home. And, you know, my time on Historic District Commission, Fred Jordan, who lives in, I can't remember the name of his house, everybody always calls it a certain house. Is that what it is? The old calendar house? There would, the floor on their front porch was rotting all of the time because the roof, I don't know how you would say it, the roof over their porch didn't come out all the way. So how that thing kind of rounds around, always that corner would rot. His wife wanted the roof to go all the way out. That house wasn't originally built for it to go all the way out. HDC approved them to, yeah, go ahead, redo that roof line. And also, the materials that were used, I believe there's plastic up there. They did some sort of that decal, the detail up there, it's plastic. So I don't know, I guess I struggle with what does the community, what do they think preservation is? And what do they, and I said to Delora before the meeting, it's always interesting that a lot of people you hear, they don't want government in their business, but everybody's, you know, not everybody, but there's some people who are fighting to keep government in other people's business. So I just found that interesting when I started thinking about it that way. I don't know what the right answer is either, but those are just some of my thoughts on this.
Thank you. Dave?
Yeah, so I've had conversations with a few community members, and some of whom are really opposed to removing the ordinance. And it's interesting when you really talk to them about it, that there's general agreement that what we're doing today isn't working, and they're experiencing the product of what's been going on with the HDC in our community. I think one of the things that happens is the conversation around blight gets drawn into this conversation around the HDC. And I think we have an obligation to deal with the issues of blight in our community. And I don't know that the HDC is the right, I'm pretty sure the HDC is not the right place for that to happen. I think that really, we should be pushing back to Planning Commission and figuring out ordinances and a master plan and what we want to see from each neighborhood and what we want to see from the downtown, and be really clear about that, and then be ready to enforce those rules. I think in regards to the HDC, the values that I hear from people, generally I hear people say, you know, we're not so worried about new materials. And I think what it comes down to is they're more worried about presentation than preservation. Like, they want whatever's done to look nice. And I think that's a fine goal. To something Rachel said a few times, it shouldn't be that we just care what looks nice in the HDC districts. We should really care what looks nice across the city in everybody's neighborhood. And that's why the Planning Commission, I think we have an obligation to look at that master plan and have the Planning Commission put in work around what's the standard, what's the line, where do things fall down, and we step in and we take action. For the HDC, I think because of what I've been hearing from folks and what I've been seeing in my neighborhood, I think we do have to take action there. The thing that stands out to me when I read the ordinance is there's a section that defines the preservation standards, And those are more or less adopted from the same state historic preservation standards, the same federal preservation standards, and those are the things telling us that we shouldn't have vinyl windows, that we shouldn't look at new materials, that we shouldn't be altering the form in any way for a house. I see plenty of historic homes. I mean, Tracy and I have talked about this a few times. There's plenty of historic homes in Allegan that still look historic, even though they've been slightly altered. And some of the nicest homes in Allegan, definitely some of the nicest homes on Marshall Street, don't meet the preservation standards. But people still like those homes. So I think it's worth, in the ordinance, removing those preservation standards right now. And removing the requirement that any home maintenance, repair, there's a term leader in here, I'm not really sure what that means, but it should probably go too. Anything that's not demolishing or moving structures in our historic districts don't have to go through the application process. What that leaves in this ordinance is restrictions on demolishing or moving structures. It leaves the ability for the HDC to accept grant money from federal or state programs for preservation, and it maintains the Historic District Committee. I think what we can do from there is we can ask the HDC, and when I say ask, I mean really send this down to them and let them know that we care about them doing this, give them a sense of purpose on this. And let the HDC know that we want them to meet with SHPO, that we want them, because SHPO's concerned now. We've got their attention. That's great. Have them meet with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Organization, talk to them about what grants are available, because HDC can receive grants. If they get a pool of money, then all of a sudden that gives them power. Then they can start going to those homes that have been preserved to their standards, and they can say, hey, we'd like to reward you. We'd like to help you preserve these homes. Have the HDC go and talk to other communities. We know that Marshall has a strong HDC, or at least a strong sense of history. We know that Grand Rapids has an HDC. There's lots of communities that do. Find out what works and what doesn't, but empower HDC to do that. I would really have them look into preservation easements. I think we've got homeowners who have taken preservation really seriously and are really committed to it, and I think what the community wants is for us to support those homeowners. And I think preservation easements are a way for us to say, this house has this rule, this is what we expect from this facility, and it's now tied to that structure forever. That easement carries through owner to owner. And we can reward people for taking on those preservation easements. And then if the Historic District wants to advise to Planning Commission or DDA what they think, what I hear is like, you want to preserve the look and feel, the historic look and feel. The first positive term that I heard about Allegan consistently that really struck home with me is quaint. I don't know if you've heard that, like, Allegan's quaint. I Googled quaint the other day. It means attractively unusual or old-fashioned. Attractively unusual is a really interesting term because it's like the oddity that you're drawn to, right? It's the unique thing that you see and you like and you want to be a part of. But that's really hard to regulate, right? Like the federal and state preservation rules that we're trying to adopt don't necessarily work for every home in our community, and they don't work for our community overall. So I think the HDC going through and figuring out what they care about, what works and doesn't work in other communities, what money's available, I think those are all really good things for the HDC to do. So we can keep the HDC, we can keep the demolition and movement of structures regulated and have a process for that, and we can allow them to accept grants. I think that's a reasonable way forward.
Thanks, Dave. Teresa, how about you?
I've often thought for years that the HDC has too much say-so on people who own historic district houses. I've always thought it should go further than that, that this group of 7 or 9 people can tell someone what they can do to preserve their home. As far as the historic district goes, I think it's way too big for our little city. We have, how many homes, Joel? Or structures, Yeah, in the historic district, total is,
But home-wise?
Yeah,
we're-
or
We're just
structure.
under 1,400.
yeah. So, you know what, more than a third of our homes are or buildings are in the historic district and/or recognized as a site. I think we start looking at that, but again, who's going to tell somebody that this is historic and this isn't, you know? I do agree with Dave that just to preserve it, do we really care what the material is? So I kind of, like Tracy, have mixed feelings, like, we want it to look nice, we want it to, you know, stay livable and, you know, but how do we tell somebody if it's historic or not? You know, to keep it historic. So, as far as the HDC goes, I don't know that that committee needs to stay assembled. I've shared with you, I work with someone who is very passionate about the historic district, and she was at the historic district meeting. She was the new member, and she was all excited that she bought a home. She said she spent a lot of time talking to Rachel. And she, you know, she was very passionate about that. But then there's other people, like we said, that don't even know they're in the historic district. So I think we need to take a look at the ordinance, take a look at what the HDC responsibilities are if we decide to keep it. So,
Well, and I think what I've heard though from everybody is, it's like everybody just wants it to look nice. They're not saying, I'm going to preserve this. I just want it to look nice. And so it's not preserving
that
them.
is very true.
Yeah, so, and
That's very true.
HDC is preserving, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's very true, yeah.
Can I just jump in with the question that I just want to be clear on this point? Because I said a lot there, but one of the things I said was if we remove the preservation requirements, the ones that come that say materials and blah, 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 and then we remove the requirement that homeowners apply to the HDC for approval for things other than demolition or moving structures, does that do enough to, I mean, do we care if the HDC is meeting every month if they don't have that power at that point? Like if we remove that piece of it, isn't that what we're really caring about right now?
I would like to add to the question, and that would be, if you want districts that have zero rules to enforce, just so you can potentially not have buildings raised and/or receive grants, how does that stop Hamilton from creating historic districts, or Pullman? I mean, without actual preservation standards, couldn't any community create a historic district?
Plainwell does not have an HDC, but they have historic district.
That is not enforced?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And they have.
Is it just we're a historic district, or it's through the state, it's federal, it's recognized? they
It's just
receive
through, it's
grants?
just, I believe it's just federal, but they call it Island Historic District, but it
They
is
have
not.
two, like a west end and a north end or
Yeah,
something.
and they
Yeah.
even went as far as to do contributing, non-contributing, and, but they don't have a commission that oversees any of this, is from my understanding.
Purpose of that is so that they could control condemning and/or receiving grants. To
I
me,
have
it
no idea.
doesn't
I have no
seem why
idea.
you would keep it intact if there's zero preservation standards.
I want to be very clear, and maybe I wasn't clear at the beginning. If you're talking about grants, and you're talking about grants coming to the city, we only get grants if we are a certified local government through SHPO. If we are not a certified local government through SHPO, then we do not qualify for the $200,000 that we've received over the past 35 years.
But what
And
did
so-
you say about the individual homeowners?
So the individual homeowners, when I clicked on that national registry up there, and you saw the handful of sites and the 3 or 4 districts, if they were listed as contributing and they're on the national register, so if you are a income-generating property, you can apply for federal tax credits because the federal government allows businesses to take tax write-offs, but they do not allow individuals to take tax write-offs on their personal income. Or you could apply for state historic tax credits on your personal income. So they used to have the state historic tax credit program back some time, and then after like 2010-ish, it was removed, and then it just recently got reinstated. So as a personal example, my wife and I chose to paint our house. We went with the cheaper cost, because $15,000 to me is still a lot to paint a house. The bid we should have took was $47,000, but $15,000 to paint our house. We could have applied for a 25% tax credit on our state of Michigan income tax credits of that $15,000, since we were preserving a historic resource in the state of Michigan, because our property is listed as a contributing resource in the Pritchard District, which is on the National Historic Register. So you're connecting that. So the local district has no say on the residential or commercial, the federal or the state tax credits. The grants we receive are straight up because we are a certified local government.
And that comes from us having the HDC. Without the HDC,
That
we
comes
can't
from
be-
multiple things. We almost fell off the certified local government when I showed up because the city did not submit an annual report for like umpteen years. And the state of Michigan just hired a new CLG person to get their CLG program in line, to get the house in order. And he reached out to us. That was one of the projects that I assigned to Jordan Maher, our previous community development coordinator. I'm like, you have to figure this out, because this is, there's too many other irons in the fire for us.
So I know this was discussed, I'm sorry.
Go
am I
for it.
okay to talk? I know this was discussed in that email exchange between you and Alan.
Yeah, Alan Higgins.
So, but I'm trying to remember. So can we be a certified local government without having an HDC?
So, certified local government,
Or are they two totally separate issues?
they are not two totally separate issues. Provides consistent, that's what they provide, the grants. We have to enforce a local historic district ordinance complying with Michigan's Historic District Act, Public Act 169 of 1970. We have to appoint a historic district commission. We have to develop and implement a strategy for incremental survey and inventory of historic resources. So right now, my most recent conversations with Alan, because we have to do an annual certification, he's like, when are you guys gonna go and resurvey your existing districts and look for new districts? So I'm thinking like the Lynn neighborhood is not in this area.
Make the whole community.
But that's one of it. Then establish a 4-year goal for local preservation program, and then comply with all reporting requirements. That's the 6 things we have to do to stay a CLG. So if it's receiving grants through the CLG program, appoint a historic district commission. If you want to get rid of it, then you're choosing not to stay a CLG. Not every city that has a historic district commission is a CLG. They just don't need to be part of that program.
So what, I guess so how many homeowners have asked for a grant? I mean, it's like, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just saying, I've heard some comments of, we don't want to take away the opportunity for residents to apply for grants. But is that really a thing? Do we really have residents out there that are going to apply for a grant? Or, again, I get back to, this is my personal feeling, the community likes the historic district. They may not necessarily care about preserving it to the standards.
They like the presentation. I like
Yes,
the way
they
you said that.
they want the homes to look nice. And so is the HDC really the reason why we have the homes that look nice? I don't think so. I think that Baker Studios they were going to do the work they did on their building, whether there was an HDC or not. You know, the house up on Grand Street, the Jordans up there, I think their home is beautiful, but I think what they did, they were gonna do whether there was an HDC or not. Same thing with Fred Jordan over here. I don't think the HDC is keeping people, you know, is an incentive for people to put this money into their homes to preserve it.
My concern with that is the city's buildings, because we had $200,000 over the last 20 years for the Regent, for the Griswold, which over 20 years, it seems like, well, that's not that much, but it's $10,000 a year. If we had somebody that offered us $10,000 a year, we might jump through some hoops to do that. And I know there's a lot of reasons not to do it, but there's $200,000 worth of reasons to do it. And again, I'm not saying that that's the deciding factor. It's just something we should take into consideration, that we can't get those grants anymore if we need work on the Griswold, which the Griswold needs at $1.3 million worth of work right now.
I go back to, should the city be the owner of the
Right,
Griswold?
exactly. That's a whole different conversation. So I'm just,
And Roger,
again, I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying these are things that we should take into consideration.
And that was one reason that I kind of really started kind of reprocessing some of this, is when, you know, I'd read about the grants and where that money had gone. So I know when we had talked previously about the National Registry, I mean, there's still several homes on there, et cetera. And when HDC was gonna go out and actually do the survey or look at pictures of every one of those 420 homes and determine if they were still basically a significant, I had thought, well, what about if we just start with that National Registry? Like, anything that's listed on there obviously is, you know, recorded at the national level. So have our districts just be comprised of those specific properties. But then that's such a huge undertaking to do, to go through and look at 420 homes. And like we have said, and Rachel has been very clear about, who is qualified on our HDC to look at all of those homes and determine whether they still meet any of those standards. Is that something SHPO could come in and do with us? I don't know whether that's something that Dave, you're shaking your head, yes?
I mean, it's worth asking, right? Like, we're sitting here trying to figure out what SHPO wants and what SHPO requires, and really we should be asking our HDC to work with SHPO. The problem in front of us is that we're trying to enforce rules that we can't enforce, right? Like, we're already failing to enforce the preservation standards that we have in place. It's obvious. You look down Marshall Street, I walked down there tonight, and it's, and the thing is, some of the nicest homes, the best presentation, are homes that aren't meeting those preservation standards. So we don't want to enforce these, we can't enforce these. Let's stop saying we're enforcing them. Let's take off these applications, that whole process, let's take that off HDC's plate. Let's say your purpose is no longer to try to keep everybody controlled. Your purpose is now figuring out what step 2 is. Your purpose is bringing in funding, figuring out how we can help people. It's not regulating history, it's celebrating history. It's a more positive stance.
And I understand that completely, but I still think these districts there's too many homes.
Sure.
420 is just an astronomical amount for the size of our city. And I don't feel like those homes are. I will speak personally for my home. I've said it at a couple of meetings before. I have 3 different types of windows. I don't have original like wood siding. I have vertical slat siding, which you can buy at Home Depot, and which I replaced from Home Depot, you know. So I don't, my house, except for the fact that it was part of the Long School, I mean, that was, you know, an important building in town. There's nothing about it that's historic anymore, and it hasn't been since probably the 1970s when they redid it. So, Rosie, I see your hand up, and we'll get to you in a minute, okay?
I have one, I guess, I need clarification here, because I feel like we're talking about a lot of things that aren't even possible if we don't have a district, and that we don't adopt, which we already have, the state law regarding the historic district, the ordinance, which is a preservation ordinance.
We getting rid of our whole ordinance does not get rid of our historic districts. We still stay in the National Register of Historic Places.
No. Yes, I understand that. That's not what I'm asking. You would like to take dissect the ordinance, for lack of a better,
Yeah.
and get rid of the preservation. And what
Yep.
I'm reading to be a CLG is that we have to have that portion of the ordinance.
There's a lot.
Adopt an HDC that then enforces that preservation. And this is where, before, I'm not asking you, understand that. I'm asking the city manager, who perhaps can, again, ask the state or our city attorney, is that what is required to, because the goal is to keep the grant money, although 200,000, I understand, might seem like a lot, it's not, over 30 years, and also have some sort of control over whether buildings can be raised. It doesn't seem feasible.
So that's a question I can ask, SHPO. I mean, I.
Drop preservation
Yeah,
rules.
just like I talked to MDOT ongoing about the Hubbard intersection, Alan Higgins and I talk often. State employees still have a no travel, requirement. They have to do it all through Zoom. So that's a question that I can ask if that's a question that comes up tonight. One thing I do want to just remind council, the HDC voted unanimously to ask city council to direct the city manager to look into this process. So to say we're gonna give this back to the HDC and have them give them some worth and some value to do something, I don't know if you have committee members on there, except probably for the most recent appointed one, Stacy Todd, that would want to tackle that kind of project. Furthermore, every time a resident's called me and they said they're in favor, I ended it with, we struggle to get volunteers to serve on this board. They meet once a month. The gentleman who is very passionate that lived on Marshall Street today and talked to me for 40 minutes on why we need to save the HDC because we need to save Allegan. I'm like, please give me your email. I will send you the volunteer application. Mike Morton, our chairperson, is moving out of the city. He had to resign. Will you please join us? Because I think now we have 2 vacancies on the HDC. His response was, I'm way too busy to worry about that. I'm sorry. I don't have residents coming to talk to the city manager that want to roll up their sleeves and dive into it the way I think some council members wish we had and would want to tackle this and run with it. Your HDC voted unanimously. And we had one person who was absent, and Richard Sopko, wonderful person, hasn't been to an HDC meeting in 6 months. Rachel?
Maybe one within 6 months.
Yeah, he's always out of town or not feeling well.
Email game that goes on of, are we going to have a quorum? Are we meeting tonight? What's going on? Because everybody is sick or can't attend or whatnot. And full transparency, I suppose, whether this needs to be said or, I feel it needs to be said. The individual recently appointed is passionate because she was not allowed to do something in her yard. That's why, not because she might have an interest in preservation, but she didn't like being told that she couldn't do something to the house she just purchased.
So my goal is not about grants or, I'm concerned about demolition rules just so we've got some bare minimum thing. My concern, my goal is to stop the bleeding. I'm seeing my neighborhood on Marshall Street, and I'm talking to neighbors there, and they're really struggling, and they're frustrated and upset, and some of the people with nice houses are getting ready to move out. And I want to see us make a big move to do something different. That's my reason for wanting to remove the preservation standards that we don't want to enforce and we can't enforce. What happens after that, I'd like to empower the HDC. If they choose to do nothing, if no one shows up, then that's what happens. I don't need something to happen next, but I need to know that we've got some sort of motion, some sort of direction, some kind of goal to see what can happen there. It's not as though, what do you lose? What do you lose by keeping the rest of that part? If you're already stopping the bleeding by not having people have to come in anymore and get approval for things.
Rosie, I'm going to have you, if you want to approach the podium, state your name and your address. I can give you 3 minutes, okay?
I just want to say that the areas that I noticed that are going downhill are probably the best example are the student ghettos. And I can see porches being enclosed. I can foresee I want to maintain the integrity of our neighborhoods. I think that that would help in luring more people to Allegan. I just think it's a positive, but I agree. The standards are not the standards for like wood preservation and not using vinyl and things like that. Those are antiquated. I just think we need to update that part of it. So, 3 minutes?
Okay. That was way less, thank you. Nan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I agree a lot with Nan Vincent, 314 North Walnut Street. So I'm right down in the middle of it. I guess I got away with murder one time by putting in a plastic porch on the back that no one sees. I don't think, Rachel, it was because I was entitled,
Nan, I don't know when it happened or who was on the board.
Okay. But I would like to see something in place to keep the historic district. I think that just has a great sound to it. When people coming through our town and they think they care enough about this area to name it historic and keep it. But I agree, though, also you cannot have such stringent rules. I mean, there's got to be more flexibility if you do decide to keep the commission. So,
Thank you. And I think I heard someone say earlier that Marshall says, welcome to historic downtown Marshall, but they don't have a historic district, is that correct? But we can use the word historic.
That's what I read. Just in random research, I also was researching that Mackinac Island, which we've all gone to, no cars, horse-drawn carriages, it's old, we love it, right? They adopted their ordinance, historic districts, in 2009. So, historic preservation, or that look, can happen without districts. I'm assuming the districts happen for granting purposes or whatnot, but it happens without all of the red tape.
And I want to be clear, Marshall does not have a historic district commission. They have no local oversight, regulation, or anything. They do have a district on the National Register. I want to be very clear about it. It feels like sometimes we're interchanging terms, and I want to make sure we're using the correct terminology.
They don't have a local commission that is telling that homeowners have to petition or submit an application to do something to their home. Correct. That's my understanding.
That is correct. From their city manager, Marshall does not have any historic districts, so we have no rules. We are a National Historic Landmark District, though.
And which we have multiple of.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And he did say they also have a very strong local passion. And that's the other thing,
And I would venture to say, we lack some passion in the majority of our historic districts.
That's where I'm like, I think people like to say that we have this, but yeah.
I think people who already have all of the things done to their home like to be able to tell, or like the comfort of knowing others are going to be told what to do to their home, that they no longer have to apply, it is where it is, so.
And I struggle with that too, Rachel, is that fair and equitable part of everything where we're going to, no, well, you're leaving, so what's coming my line? I get it that there are certain homes that have the historic designation, et cetera, but how do you say, well, you can do this, but you can't, and, yeah. So I guess for me, I'm more interested in the fact that we have these places on the National Historic Registry. And so, do I feel like we need a local oversight over that? No, but then I worry about the loss of the grant funding. But I didn't realize there were quite that many things that needed to happen in order to receive that grant anyway.
And there are two different types of grants, right? There's the grant that Joel's talking about with the CLG, and then there's the grant individuals can go get.
Right. Right, we just wouldn't be able to get the CLG grants.
What was the
correct?
second grant, Dave? I didn't pick up on that.
Aren't there grants individuals can get? Isn't that the conversation out of the SHPO by email?
That's like.
Those aren't grants, those are
Tax
tax credits
credits.
is what I receive.
Okay.
So two totally different things,
Yeah,
grants
yeah.
and tax
I
credits.
guess what I'm advocating is, so step one is, yeah, stop the bleeding, let's take the restrictions out. Let's not empower the HDC to enforce things that we don't want them to enforce. And then step two, let's let the HDC work through figuring out what that looks like. And SHPO is very interested in what we're gonna do, and they've got a great resource there.
Well, just as the current, and I suppose it's my last, maybe, I don't know what my term is on the HDC. The HDC has discussed this. The HDC has gone back and forth about should we pick homes that have greater significance over others. And the HDC made the recommendation to council to look into disbanding it or repealing it or abolishing it or whatever the phrase might be. It wasn't, hey, guys, think about this and come back at us with more work to do.
And Nick had said we could repeal the ordinance and then review to rebuild. Was that his?
I believe so.
Okay.
There you go, which I like
Which-
that. And I'll be honest, the fact that there was a unanimous vote from the HDC really speaks volumes. Plus the fact that 80% of the people that have responded that they're interested in getting rid of it. I mean, that should carry a lot of weight with us.
I was just going to say, plus the survey that was sent out, that was your time on count, or?
That was
or-
part of the master plan development.
I'm just saying, I don't remember who was on the HDC when that happened. Dave was, okay, yes. Which was basically, let us do what we want, but concerned with raising buildings,
Yeah,
condemning them.
well, the top two concerns, what should they regulate was, we should regulate demolitions at like 60%, and I left that on my desk. And additions was the next one, north of 50. When it got to compensation, well, vinyl stuff, they were more like, was the responses we got. But demolitions was a big one, additions was a big one. You have to apply for a permit, and really that process is just making sure that you did misdig, services are disconnected, and we don't have a big boom that happens when a house goes down.
So there's not an oversight by
Yeah, no, there's no, this is special to us,
CI.
don't knock this down.
Okay. All right, well, we do have a reading of this ordinance and scheduling of a public hearing at the regular session, so.
Yeah, so just real quick, Delora. My recommendation to council is to continue with the first reading of the ordinance, schedule the public hearing, and then on the 25th, that gives us 2 weeks to find out, can we dissect the ordinance or, chop it up a little bit and not do a full repeal, but, deny the repeal and then start from square one again and come up with a different kind of ordinance. But I can call SHPO, because I think I was asked to call SHPO and ask about that. I can talk to our city attorney about that process as well. And I'll verify, individual grants, because when I'm looking at SHPO's website, there's a line they have on there that anybody that's listed in the National Historic Register can apply for a grant. You don't have a local one. So I'm going to call Alan out on that one as well to say, it's not just tax credits, but I'm seeing an actual grant system on your website. Is that really there? Again, they are pro-historic and they're pro-local regulation. So they're going to constantly direct us that way. I have high cholesterol. I'm not going to go ask Ben Shaindorf what kind of, food I should eat, because he's going to direct me towards the steak department the whole time. Yeah. He's not going to say broccoli. He's going to say, have this pork chop instead, Joel, the other white meat.
Can I request, if we're going to be looking at two different options on the 25th, could I see more detail around what the option of removing the entire ordinance and then what happens next is? Because my concern is that we do step one, stop the bleeding, what's step two? If step two is form a new committee to study something, I just want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, so again, my recommendation is to move forward with scheduling the public hearing and seeing what happens over the next 2 weeks. If there's a strong groundswell of residents that want to study and do this, and by strong groundswell, I'm saying, if you have 40 residents that step up and say, we'll be your study committee, and we're going to meet on our own time at mug shots over coffee, that's one thing. If it's a strong groundswell of, hey, city, do something about this, it's, we have vacancies on these boards, but I don't have time to be part of the solution.
Yeah, knowing HGC does not want to do that.
Yeah, no one HCC does not want to do this.
Okay. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion regarding the downtown streetscape design process.
Very quickly, we have had our first public meeting. It was last Tuesday. Part of our downtown lowdown. People who care about the downtown meet every Tuesday. We went through a process. I should not say it like that. Monthly, yeah. Not every Tuesday. Parker and I meet every Tuesday. Yeah. So it's the downtown lowdown. People who want to come and, talk about the downtown, they show up. We allocated last Tuesday's meeting to the entire discussion about the downtown streetscape. We shared with them, a PowerPoint. We went through, we talked about the direction we're going. We wrote down about 30 different ideas. I believe that was in your packet as well. We've scheduled a second meeting for October
26th.
the Tuesday, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yep, Tuesday night. I believe it's 6 to 8, so we can capture people who have jobs that they can't get away from between 8 and 5. Now they'll be able to come to the second meeting. The second meeting is hoping to be more of a preference selection when we look at benches and light posts or lamp posts.
Yeah, that's correct. It's 2 weeks from today. And it'll be in the evening. I believe it's scheduled from 6 to 8 p.m.
And we'll have a couple people from Abbott Marsh there. One thing we've kind of put our foot down from a city perspective with people is we have 2 or 3 buildings where the basements extend out underneath the sidewalk. That is a structural deficiency for our sidewalks. And if you go and stand in front of Aubrey's, you can kind of see where the sidewalk cracks a little bit. As part of this streetscape project, we are going to be enclosing their basement that extends underneath our sidewalk, kind of like walling it off, filling it in, bracing it, so we don't have space underneath our sidewalk. That's just a determination that I made with Abbott Marsh, and I made that clear to the handful of property owners that affects, and we haven't had any pushback. More thank yous, actually, because I think we're going to be doing something that they wanted to do, but, never got around to figuring out how to do that.
There are 3 buildings and what I guess I'll consider 4 storefronts, because Aubrey's Closet is the double storefront. So for Aubrey's Closet, Pizza Hut, and Something Sweet for You.
At that meeting, we had 30.
Yeah, we had 35 people at that meeting last
Yeah.
week. It's a good turnout.
Roger, you were there. Peter Hands was there.
Yep.
Bill was there in the audience. I don't think I'm missing anybody in this room, but yeah, it was I thought it was a well-attended meeting and lots of good ideas. Rachel was not there.
I know, I felt that. That was
I did bump into Rachel on the sidewalk after the meeting. I'm like, what you doing? You missed something. So, no, I thought it was an excellent, turnout and some good ideas. We are going to have a discussion about locust trees, my friends. You have people who are passionate about keeping them, and you have people that are passionate about getting rid of them. The trees.
I had somebody reach out to me on Facebook to say, I've heard that all of those trees are coming down.
They're passionate about trees, not necessarily.
No.
They're
these-
passionate about those trees staying.
So,
There are people who
yeah.
are passionate about
meeting.
those trees going away. Not anti-tree. They want to see something else go in, but those trees, they want gone. So, like I said, we are going to have a discussion, as we, get through this over the next month or two.
You have anti-tree people too.
And then we also have no tree, nowhere people. That is correct. I apologize for forgetting that segment of the population. So, I just wanted, of that meeting, that was probably the only thing I thought was a little controversial that I heard. Roger, you were there, did you?
Was the
Yeah, I was really excited that everybody seemed really eager to move forward and like what they saw. The trees was the big dividing point. And it wasn't too bad, but I had a couple conversations after the meeting with people. I think they like the mature trees downtown. I think that's the issue. And they happen to be locust trees, so they want to keep those trees and not replace them with small trees. Yeah.
That's all we have on that one.
Okay, thanks, Joel. Did anybody have any questions about that process? No? Okay. Next, we have a review of the revenue and expenditure report through September 2021.
So that's submitted. Tracy wanted to get that one out to the city council for this meeting. You got the report in your packet. If you have any questions ever, you can always email Tracy. If you don't hear from Tracy, you can always email me and say, I asked this question, where's the answer?
Anyone see anything that they were concerned with? No? Okay. And next, we have a review of our council agenda. Peter will be absent today. He had let Joel, Teresa, and I know that, so we will need to get him excused. I didn't see anything else that needed addition. Joel?
Yeah, one mistake we did is under written petitions and proclamations is a request from Kalamazoo Folklife to use the Good Times at the Gazebo for free for the next season, so the 2022. So they will be here. We forgot to put that on the agenda, so our apologies.
So that's an addition under number 6?
Yeah, it's written petitions, so essentially they can always just walk up, but I think
Under
it's good.
number 10, okay.
Yeah, number 10, for, yeah, so it would be nice for you just to amend the agenda
Okay.
and identify that you're going to have that agenda item.
Okay. All right, if there is nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn at 6:52, and we will meet back here at 7 o'clock for a regular session. One, I'm going to go ahead and call the regular session of City Council to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Redding.
Here.
Councilmember Hands. Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Councilmember Perigo.
Present.
Councilmember McKenzie.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Galloway.
Here.
Mayor Andrus.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Michaela. We do need to get a motion to excuse Councilmember Hans, please.
I'll make a motion.
Support. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 4, which is approval of agenda. Under 4A, an approval of the regular council meeting agenda for October 12th, 2021. I know that I do need to amend the agenda, so I'll go ahead and just make that motion. I move to amend the agenda to add 10A, which is a request from Kalamazoo Folklife. I know that we have some representatives here tonight, so we will get you under agenda item 10. So could I get a second, please?
So moved. Oh, support, sorry.
That's okay. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under agenda item number 5, approval of minutes, we have 5A, which is an approval of the study session minutes from September 27th, 2021 council meeting. Dave?
I see under item 5, the discussion regarding the plan forward for the Griswold. At the end, it says all council members agreed to move forward with the immediate steps proposed by staff. What does that mean? Because I remember having a conversation about an agreement, but I thought we didn't agree to anything, and then I thought I'd voiced some concerns about moving forward with those.
So the immediate steps was the renovation of the Marilla Lounge and the increased programming, if I recall correctly. So we don't fully support the document because there's some wordsmithing and maybe some larger visioning down the road. But the immediate steps, if I am recalling correctly, was on the Marilla Lounge improvements we're making and looking into the possibility of acquiring a liquor license. I'm going to repeat that, looking into the possibility of acquiring a liquor license. That's what we have. I can hop to your packet from that month if you give me 2 seconds, because the report was in that packet.
Yeah, I just don't remember agreeing to those steps. I really wanted to see a
Would you like
full-
us to amend the,
Yeah.
and just say
you could
some
do
of the
that.
council?
I mean,
How
I
do you want
reached
me to
out
say
to-
it?
Yeah, you could say Councilmember Redding wants to see a plan for improving programming and optimal management before we spend any more money.
As I've discussed before with council members, I can go ahead and we can amend those minutes to highlight Councilmember Redding's, I don't want to use the word not support, but one council member can't change the direction. And based on that discussion at council on that study session, initial steps we have was working with regional organizations to attract and retain annual recurring seminars, outings, corporate events that will bring large swaths of professionals into Allegan for a day and eventually, when lodging's available, multiple days at a time. Market the Griswold is what we have for the initial steps here. Immediate actions is the Griswold Auditorium Benefit Event, liquor license, Marilla Lounge remodel, And then ADA accessible restroom is what we have. That's on page 4 of 5 of that PDF. And then next steps was the larger kitchen remodel, club room remodel, HVAC update. So we can amend the minutes if there's going to be a motion to, accept the amendment, accept those study session minutes with the amendment that not all council members were in favor of the immediate actions. I see Teresa looking at me too.
We did accept the immediate actions, though. These,
Dave's thing is just that it says all council, and it wasn't full council that was in support of that.
I
Is
just
that-
want what I said represented accurately in the minutes.
Is everyone what they said represented in the minutes? No, it's a generalization of the conversation,
staff
correct?
provided the council with.
So, and it's also, yeah, I understand that, but like specifically what Dave is saying is not going to go in the minutes unless we're going to include what Peter said about the marketing and everything, and that's not what the gist of this is.
I know Peter had some concerns about that line
Mm-hmm.
too, because I reached out to him and was like, hey, I thought we talked about some other things than that.
Right, I'm
So
just, I'm saying that your actual words, what you just said, without a doubt, are probably not going in the minutes, but it can be noted, should council decide, that you're not in favor. But it's also planning or pre-session, and we don't make decisions. So it's just really a conversation. So if two people were kind of about it and the rest of us aren't, I mean, I don't know how you want that explained in each conversation during roundtable and pre-session, and
So you don't think I should have
I
a
think you should
concern
do
about
whatever
this?
makes you comfortable,
Okay.
but what council votes on for these minutes specifically tonight is just that you two or one person was not in favor of the full discussion.
And staff has no problem if someone wants to make a motion to strike the word all and just have it say the majority of council agreed to move forward with the immediate steps. To me, that is,
That's covering,
well, and that captures the discussion.
Yes.
Because we left immediately thinking the majority of council said, go forth, go west.
good, yes, no?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
say what it says now.
But someone
I
needs to make that motion.
So could we
Staff
get a
can't make that
motion to amend the study session minutes to indicate that the majority of council was in favor?
Correct, not all. I'll make that motion.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? No? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 5B, which is an approval of the regular meeting minutes from September 27th, 2021 council meeting. And I found a correction in that one. On page 3, under number 2, about the Eden's curbside, we have that the vote carried 5-2, but there were only 4 names that were listed as yays. And mine was missing. So if we could just. So I make a motion to amend the regular meeting minutes to include on page 3, under number 2, Mayor Andrus's name.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Were there any other corrections?
I had sent one to you, Joel, and it's also in item, section 11, A7, 2. It says Mackenzie offered a motion with support to approve a special use permit. And it doesn't say who supported.
Yeah, we got your email and
Okay.
that correction. So who did we write down as supporting that? Do you remember, Michaela? Because you made that correction for us. All right.
So that one's already been addressed?
Yeah, that one's been addressed.
Okay.
I just hadn't heard, so
Yeah, sorry about
I
that.
don't know if you had seen it.
So we do have a motion with support on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 5C, which is an approval of the closed session minutes from September 27th, 2021. I think Michaela's bringing those around for us.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Could I get, oh, thank you. It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We'll pass these on back. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 7, which is a first reading of ordinances and scheduling of public hearings. Under 7A.1, we have a first reading and scheduling of a public hearing for ordinance 498. We're going to schedule that public hearing for October 25th, 2021, regarding changes to Chapter 29, our utilities, Article 2 of the City of Allegan Water Code of Ordinances. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, this was presented to you at your study session on September 27th. As with all ordinance adoptions in the city of Allegan, it's a two-step process. Tonight, you are just having a first reading of the ordinance, and then you are scheduling the public hearing where you will be adopting it at your October 25th meeting. So the city of Allegan, since we are a public drinking water supply system, we have to have an ordinance per DEQ, or EGLE as they are now called. And what we have presented is several wordsmithing changes to our ordinance that was shared with you at the last meeting. And these are also being realized in our water municipal policy, which you will be adopting on the 25th as well. But the ordinance, since it's a two-step process, had to be introduced this evening. It was in your packet, as you read. It was a very long ordinance. It is a very long ordinance, but most of the changes are wordsmithing changes that we made. Any questions from the council?
Dave?
I noticed a couple references were added to something to the effect of no people are getting free water. That was added to a few. But then we've still got that part where people can ask for discounts for the pool filling. Is that because the discount is given on sewer rather than water?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the other thing we should just be very clear with council is we are recommending on doing away with what's been referred to as the sprinkler discount in this process. So we're being very clear. If you're filling up your pool, you can get, you can call and say, I used 2,500 gallons to fill up my hot tub or whatever, and we can deduct that from your bill.
Yeah.
But
I just wanted to make sure those two statements weren't in conflict, but it's because it's a sewer discount, not a
Correct.
water discount.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, council? If not, could I get a motion, please, to schedule a public hearing of ordinance 498 for October 25th?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council? No? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 7A.2, which is a first reading and scheduling of a public hearing for ordinance 499. Public hearing will be set for October 25th regarding changes to Chapter 29, our utilities, Article 3, sewers and drains of the City of Allegan Code of Ordinances. Joel?
All right, similar to the water one, it's partner ordinance, it's our sewer use ordinance. Again, most of it was, wordsmithing. The changes to this, though, will end up triggering our agreement with the township and our sewer use agreement we have with them, which, we will be sharing that with them in the upcoming future. But we needed to get the ordinances done. And if Doug was here, he would remind you, even though you go through your whole process of adopting this ordinance, it then goes to the state, and then they review it and say, yes, it's good, and they won't review it until you adopt the ordinance. So if they come back with changes, we might have to redo this process again. I don't know why they won't do a cursory review up front for us, but they will not.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions, council? We'd review these at the last meeting, too. Okay. Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to schedule a public hearing for October 25th for ordinance 499?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have Agenda Item 7A.3, which is a first reading and scheduling of a public hearing for Ordinance 500 for October 25th, 2021. And this ordinance would eliminate Chapter 13 Historic Preservation of the City of Allegan in our Code of Ordinances. Staff?
Sure. So we discussed this in detail during the study session earlier this evening. Again, this is a two-step process. So tonight, you are just having a first reading of the ordinance, and you are scheduling a public hearing for October 25th. As discussed earlier this evening, staff is going to go ahead and we are going to contact our city attorney as well as the State Historic Preservation Office to inquire about reducing the oversight of Chapter 13 and what that would look like. Also inquiring about individual properties still being able to obtain certain grants. We believe we've already proved they will still qualify for the federal historic tax credit and the state historic tax credit if this ordinance is repealed. I believe those are the two things you would like us to look into, but I want to stop here. If there's anything else you want us to look into, please direct us now.
Council, is there anything else that we had asked Joel to look into?
I'd be curious what the process of designing this historic study committee would look like. Like if we remove the whole ordinance in that path, what would step 2 be there? Just some kind of framework so I can wrap my head around, and then council can decide if that's something we want to pursue at that time.
So just to clarify, Dave, if the ordinance is repealed, what maybe the replacement process would look like through a, okay.
Yeah, like I
Or
think
a
that's what we
review,
got from
okay.
the lawyer, right, was you
Yep,
could do this too.
repeal and,
Yeah.
okay.
So for the 25th, we will have a what-if scenario going down of what that framework would be, correct?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
there'll be the one path of remove ordinance, then the what if, and then the other path of adjust the ordinance.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff, council? No? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to schedule a public hearing on October 25th for ordinance 500?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 9, which is public comment. I will invite anyone up who has a public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you do have any public comment, please approach the podium, state your name and your address. Hi there.
So we haven't really talked about why I'm here, but I'm Lori Gramer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Holland Area Arts Council. And the Holland Area Arts Council is the Region 4 Service Center for the Michigan Council for the Arts and Cultural Affairs, also supported by the National Endowment for the Arts. And our area that we support and underwrite and fund is the 5 counties along the lakeshore. And I've been doing this for 28 years, and I still have to do this. And it's Ottawa, Muskegon, Oceana, Mason, and Allegan County. So it is my job to make sure that we support arts and culture programs along the lakeshore to, one, not only build social capital, but to bring economic impact to the small communities that so greatly need it, especially right now. So our program is funding many grant programs for arts and culture is a really big word. So unlike the major grants for operations through the state level, who you have to be an actual arts and culture organization, we fund city municipalities, churches, schools, libraries, and small arts programs that help support other nonprofit activities in those communities to provide economic impact and social capital. So the reason I am here, I'm here for twofold, is one for, we are going to support a program that you're going to be, what is it called? I'm sorry? The Good Times at the Gazebo. So I do hundreds of these. So at the Good Time, so the state is going to be supporting this program as it moves forward. And I just wanted to tell you how important it is for us and for our reviewers. We get reviewers from all 5 counties that sit and read these grants. We get lots of them that come in. How important it is that we see that a city and a township and a community support the projects that are coming in, and how they can do that by supporting with either underwriting or free services. Or it shows us that this is something that the city wants to embrace. So it's really important that we see that the city wants to do these sorts of things. We already know they work. We fund everything along the lakeshore, and it's amazing what it brings about and the people that it brings together. So I wanted to tell you that, how important it is that we see your support in projects like this as we start to fund more in Allegan County. Allegan County is an underserved county, and it's really important for me to get my numbers up here, because the more money we get to come into West Michigan, when the boats rise, when the water rises, all the boats go up. So the more we can start doing here in the Allegan area, the more money and the more funding is going to start pulling into Western Michigan for all of us to do a better job. And 2, beside asking you to support these small projects to help me make sure that we get funding in, did you guys know that you can also apply to me for your performance series downtown and get an easy $4,000
Wonderful.
with no cash match? It's all in kind, and it's a super little program. And those deadlines are August 3rd and January 15th. All you have to do is call the Holland Area Arts Council. That's where my offices are. Or you can go onto the state website, and it gives you all of our information. You key in there, and you get me. And I'll come and I can help you do it. I'll walk you through the process. Once you push the button, I'm on the other side.
Lori, could you just tell us your phone number, please?
Yeah, my phone number, I will. So my name is Lori Gramer. You can get me at director@hollandarts.org. That's the Holland Area Arts Council Center. But then also through my private email, which that is also with the council, and it's all one word. It's bluemoon.connections@yahoo.com. But I'm at the Arts Council, and I will be happy to just give you a card and you can put this information. And we're here to help any organization outside the city, but especially the city. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this for 21 years and I've never received a grant from the city of Allegan.
Well, thank you.
So we'd really like to support you and fund you and help you get other programs into the area. It's critical for our side of the state, and it's critical for, I know, economic impact, but social capital is really waning right now. And this kind of thing is really important. So that's why I'm here, is to support these types of projects and to let you know how critical it is that we see city support so that we can help from the state level fund more money into here. Okay?
Thank you so much. And yes, if you could please leave a card for us, that would be wonderful. Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move down to our amended agenda item number 10, which is a request, written petitions and reports from special committees. We have 10A, which is a request from Kalamazoo Folklife. Leah?
Hi, I just want to let you know that our concerts went very well this year. They were really well attended. We were drawing people from Otsego, Battle Creek, Grand Rapids, Fenville, all different areas. We were seeing them on a regular basis. We were up to about 225 plus people each week. They were going to Village Market, to Tantric, to Sherwood's, the ice cream store, buying food. They were eating dinner at Shaindorf's before the concerts. So they were actually patronizing many of our little businesses in town. We took these concerts over for the city because the city felt it was too much work, too much of a burden. And if I have to pay for use of the park, that burden now becomes my burden. It's been tough this year getting help and financing. We've contributed a lot of our own funds, but we're not getting the funding that we normally do. These businesses are coming off of COVID, and that's what the difference is. So if I have to pay for the park, that just makes it more difficult for us. And I'm just here to ask for a waiver. We don't get paid for this. We put a lot of time into it. The concerts are free, and they've been going on for many, many years.
Thanks, Leah. And I believe we all have the note from Kalamazoo Folklife. Council, were there any questions specifically that you may have had for Leah? Staff, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, just for clarification, the Rotary Club ran it for like 30 years.
Yes.
The city did it for 1 year, at
Okay.
the same time that we started our Rolling on the River concert series. And after that 1 year, we said we're putting our effort into Rolling on the River. We also were doing the April series at the Griswold. It wasn't, the city had enough music that we were supporting individually. It wasn't, we chose Rolling on the River over, running Good Times at the same time, so. If another group wanted to step up and keep Good Times going, we said, go for it, is what we said, so.
Thank you. Any questions, council, for staff or for Leah?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Staff, what is the charge for the gazebo? I am not, off the top of my head, I don't know what that fee is. Secondly, Leah, you said you guys are not paid? You don't,
We're all volunteers. We're a nonprofit organization.
I'm sorry, it's 25 what, per day, 4 hours, 8 hours, what is it? Okay. So, and this might be going to Lori, so then are you just supporting them in spirit? Like through the Holland Arts Council support, or is there some sort of financial support? Because that,
The MCACA is, that's Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. They make applications to us, and it's a $4,000 mini grant with a zero cash match. And so for that $4,000, we expect that money to go to pay the bands.
okay, so then.
But this is, what Lori has helped me do is not Good Times at the Gazebo.
Oh.
I did this at another venue here in town. And if we get that grant, we will be doing a winter concert series, much like the gazebo series, but we'll be doing it at the Presbyterian Church throughout the winter.
Okay.
So that's what the $4,000 mini grant goes for.
Would be
Good
paying
Times at
the
Gazebo.
church for the service, for the concerts? Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
And that has nothing to do with Good Times at the Gazebo.
okay, that was, I'm confused.
Okay.
That's fine, I thought you were saying you were here supporting the Good Times at the Gazebo. Okay. That makes sense then.
She does support us.
No, I understand, but
yeah.
that's what I was, I'm not understanding why you're asking for this, and there's no fees involved for your band if they're supporting, but now I get it. Okay, what was that?
To answer your question, Councilmember McKenzie, right behind you there, you can see use of all of our parks, including Mayhem Park. 4-hour rentals, $100, which breaks down to what Ryan was saying, $25 an hour. Or a full day, a full 8-hour rental is $200.
Forgive my ignorance, I thought there was like, for a wedding at the gazebo, same thing? Okay.
Same
all
thing,
right, all right.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, and I might add, I've done my research and done my homework. Allegan is the only city in southwest Michigan that charges for their park for the summer concert series.
But
Matter
we've
of fact, this
provided a
year-
waiver, though, I believe, for you guys since you've started it.
Right.
Right, so you haven't actually paid to use the
No,
park.
we have not. And this year, South Haven actually helped to fund their summer concert series.
Okay. Were there any other questions, council, for Leah or for staff? No?
No, there's just a lot of information on this. I'm just trying to read and process everything.
Process.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I'm asking these questions because we have charged everyone thus far that has come and wanted to use anything on the riverfront, the gazebos, that sort of stuff. So we're at another, what should we do? So, the last one was the ugly sweater, and that
Correct.
was the $50.
Yes, that was $50 for the use of the riverfront, and the barricades, and the electricity.
Okay.
This as a recurring event that's bringing people into downtown, I feel like is a little different situation. Of course, I honestly don't think we should have charged the ugly sweater, but that's a whole different thing.
So if it's, well, I'll just make a motion, and then there can be more discussion. So I would move that we charge Good Times at the Gazebo $25 each time for the electricity use.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any support for that motion? In order to discuss, we do need to have a support.
I'll support.
Okay, it has been moved and supported, council. Now we may discuss the motion on the floor, which is a $25 fee per event for use of electricity. And how many events, Leah, are there?
Trying to figure out.
Total?
I think about 8,
Okay,
right,
so that would be a $200
yeah.
total amount
I know,
over 8 weeks.
that still is very much a burden for me.
For another $200 for people who have businesses around town. They're all watching this and wondering what we're gonna do.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you're out begging people for money, it's a lot of bucks.
Okay,
You know, and it
So,
provides a
yep.
service for the city, so what's this?
yep, understood. So now is the time for council to kind of discuss this motion that's on the floor. So is there any discussion, council, about that motion? Dave?
I think we lose more than we gain by charging anything here.
I agree.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add? Teresa?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think the city profits more by having the people come into town than charging for the use of the gazebo.
Okay. Tracy, did you have anything to add? Okay, so it has been moved and discussed. We have a support. I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote, and if the vote fails, then we can either create a new motion or move on. So all those in favor of a $25 flat rate per event for Kalamazoo Folklife for the Good Times at the Gazebo, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
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 Okay, so it's 3-3, motion fails. Okay, would anyone like to make a new motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive all fees for Kalamazoo Folklife, Good Times at the Gazebo concert series.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Could I get a support, please? It has been moved and supported. Okay, we're going to start over with our discussion. Roger, do you want to go ahead and start and explain why you have
Yeah.
made that motion?
Right, so I agree with Dave. I think we benefit more by having this event that's bringing people into our downtown and buying drinks and food and gas and things in our downtown. And as I look at this, I feel like this is set up more for somebody who's doing a wedding or a specific event, not necessarily a recurring concert series. So it just seems to me that it's a small investment from the city to waive the fee to get this happening in our downtown.
Okay, and Teresa, you supported that motion. Did you have anything to
Yeah,
discuss?
It's not a group of invited people. It's people who choose to come to Allegan and enjoy our downtown area. So I think we benefit by not charging them as well.
Okay, is there any further discussion, council?
I'll add a little bit more to that. I think charging $200 hurts us more than the $200 is worth. I think that sends a bad message, and I think Good Times at the Gazebo isn't the place where we fight that battle.
Okay, and what I'm going to bring up is something that we've already discussed once, which is this fee schedule that we just put together and implemented this whole policy. We had a discussion not long ago about making amendments to that. We decided that we weren't going to make any amendments, but I had talked to Councilmember Hance about trying to set some parameters for when people do come forward. So, go ahead, Roger.
Respond to that?
Sure.
Because when I brought up the fact that I didn't like how our fee schedule was structured, the answer was, well, people can come forward and ask us to waive the fees, which is what's happening now. And so we can't say, well, we just did the fee structure, because we just said if people come forward, then we can have that discussion.
Right, but the issue is that how do we determine, like pick and choose? It just seems really arbitrary. So I would still like to look for that, to set something up and how to determine who and when and why. Anybody else have any discussion? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of waiving the fees signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
Aye. No.
Motion carries. Your fees are waived.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so next up, we have agenda item number 11, which is a report from boards, commissions, and city offices. Under 11A, we have our city boards, commissions, and area agencies. 11A.1 is a report from the Historic District Commission, their October meeting. Rachel?
That is me. Yes, so we had an applicant from 355 Grand Street who has wooden windows with, I believe it was no mullions, I'll call them, or muttons, whatever you would like to call them. Yes? Yeah, I hear you snickering. Who is asking to replace them with wood windows, including 6 mullions, I guess making it look more historic. And so we approved it. It was wood, windows, right? Yeah. And then we also discussed dissolving the HDC and made the vote to unanimously make the recommendation to council. Do I need to
That was
repeat
at your last
anything?
meeting?
Wait, we didn't do it on the 4th?
No, that was
What did we
the
do?
meeting prior.
You just talked about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then we talked about it again. After making the recommendation and voting, we talk about it again.
Okay, thank you. And next, we've got our 11B, which is our Finance Department. Under 11B.1, we have a request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Teresa?
Okay, we have accounts payable in the amount of $289,777.55. Payroll in the amount of $102,515.94 for a total disbursement of $392,293.49. Motion to approve, please.
It has been moved and supported. Council, is there any discussion about accounts payable and payroll? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under 11B.2, we have a request to approve a purchase order to Pitney Bowes in the amount of $6,625.60 for a new folding and mail inserter machine. Staff? Tracy, you taking this one? Okay.
So we did some research after several months of folding and stuffing envelopes by hand. Tammy had come to me and Joel and I and asked us if we could get a different folding machine, the one that we have that doesn't like the heavier paper, Joel, or is the lighter paper? Yeah, it
Either.
doesn't like anything at this point. We had bought it a while ago for like $400. So we had Tammy do some research into which ones that we thought might work good. The Pitney Bowes one is the one that they liked the most because of the different ways to fold with the tax bills, the assessment notices, the water bills, and, you know, when we do random mailings for newsletters or other things like that. We'd be happy with any of them. Of course, we picked the one that they thought that they would like the most. And so that's the Pitney Bowes one. We got 3 quotes, and if you have any other questions, I can answer them, but we would appreciate it if you guys would approve the purchase of this folding machine.
Thank you, Tracy. Joel, did you have anything to add?
In the memo, Tracy and I typed up the process that we go through right now. And I just want to be clear, going with the Pitney Bowes saves significant staff time. And the fact that we have a Pitney Bowes postage machine, even though
We already have an account set up with them, so it makes
they
it
know
that much
maintenance.
easier.
So that's why we're recommending the Pitney Bowes. And I really don't want us to cheap out, and that's kind of what we did when we got that one from Office Depot. And doing the Historic District letters that went out, the 420, they made me be the person to fold them, and I almost quit. So, yeah, we're trying to do something to be more efficient, and we believe this will make it more efficient for
Could you
us.
come up with another project, Tracy, for you?
For me to fold, yeah.
Yeah.
I still haven't sat at the front desk, and they really want me to sit at the front desk and just take phone calls. I'm like, you guys transfer the phone calls back to me, don't worry. I know what it's like to be yelled at over the phone.
Are there any questions, council, for staff?
I used to be in a job where we did huge mailings, and I know the benefits of having a good folder.
I am in a job that I do huge mailings, and I wish I had a folder. It's just my two hands. Tracy, is this budgeted, do we have?
It is
this
not,
a
so
line
it would
item?
require a budget
A budget
adjustment.
adjustment? Okay. All right, if there's no further questions, could I please get a motion?
Support?
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
They will thank you.
Next, we have 11E, Public Works. 11E.1 is to approve a mutual aid agreement with the Allegan County Road Commission. Joel?
Sure, very quickly. As council is well aware, we have 2 salt trucks that apply salt to our roads in the city of Allegan. We are in the process of refurbishing one of those salt trucks, and when that's refurbished, we'll send the other one in to get refurbished. A couple of weeks ago, Doug Cosman came to me, goes, so if we have an early winter, or if the salt truck we have goes down, because this one is being refurbished right now, he's like, we're going to be in a world of hurt. He goes, in my previous communities, we've had mutual aid agreements with the county road commission that we could call on. You have to pay their wages and benefits to do the work, and you usually negotiate important roads over, residential streets. Because we should get something lined up. We had Craig Atwood, who is the county road commission. I think his title's engineer, but he's like the executive director. We had him come in, meet with us. We talked about a handful of road-related issues where the city and the county abut each other, and one of them was this mutual aid, and Craig willingly said, yeah, we can, do something for you. And Craig was like, we'd really like to have an agreement, and I said, yeah, me too. So the agreement's in your packet. We're looking for a motion to, authorize Doug to sign it so we can get this lined up before winter gets here.
Thank you, Joel. Council, are there any questions at all regarding this? Roger?
So I was looking at this agreement. It's a mutual aid agreement. So what is our responsibility to them? It's just financial? I mean, are they ever going to call on us to help salt their roads?
So when you read the agreement, the city's going to be responsible for reimbursing the road commission. The city would notify them. The notification has to be the specific locations. The road commission will provide salting services during their normal business hours. And then the road commission will track the costs and all activities performed under this agreement, agree to hold each other harmless. So if they, take out, a mailbox, we hold them harmless. So you're right. Typically, mutual aids is you scratch my back, I'm going to scratch your back.
Right.
Our scratching
They're
of their
scratching
back
our
is
back
paying
and
them.
we're paying them for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
All right.
is.
That-
But I just wanted to go over that
I
real
was
quick to
just
make sure
wondering if I
the
missed
city
anything.
knew. Yeah, because if we don't have a salter, we can't go salt the road. So
Thanks, Roger. Were there any other questions, council? Okay. If not, could I get a motion, please, to approve the mutual aid agreement with Allegan County Road Commission?
So moved?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up, we have 11F, City Manager and City Clerk. 11F.1 is an approval of the Service Employees International Union 517M contract with the City of Allegan. Joel?
all right, during a previous closed session, which we can't talk about, so I'm going to stop right there. Over the past few months, I've informed council of the progress in negotiating a contract. We have an agreed upon contract. I have signed the contract. Upon signing the contract, Tracy Stahl informed me, she goes, council usually has to approve that before you sign it, Mr. Dye. And so I have it in front of you for your approval. It's getting the cart in front of the horse a little bit, but I kept council aware of our negotiation through that process. So I am asking you to go ahead and approve the contract, at this moment.
Thanks, Joel. Council, are there any questions at all?
Are there any big changes to the contract you want to highlight?
Big changes into the contract from the previous one?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So from the previous one, their holiday schedule is now online with all other employees. As mentioned before, we reduced the hour paid lunch to a half-hour paid lunch. And then the new salary schedule that's on the screen and it's in the document is probably the big ones. But there's a lot of wordsmithing. We really brought their contract in line with all other non-union employees in regards to our personnel handbook policies, as we discussed as a council, so.
Any other questions, council? Okay. Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.2, which is approval of a purchase order for Plaster Perfection in the amount of $5,875 to repair the plaster at various locations at the Griswold Auditorium. Staff?
Sure. Part of owning buildings is maintenance. There has been neglect happening at the Griswold in forms of our plaster condition for the past several years. Making Ryan full-time and our Griswold manager, one of the jobs I assigned to him immediately was figure out how to fix the plaster. So you have more pictures in the report. That's part of your packet. What you see here, the green painted walls, you should be able to recognize that that's the Marilla Lounge. The crown molding is not wood molding. It is plaster molding. The gray wall you see there is, I believe, the second floor corporate room. Nope, hallway. It's the lobby. Okay, I just saw that blue car. I thought that was a parking lot in the back, but that's the road. That's Hubbard. So we have some serious deficiencies in our wall condition. Ryan contacted, I think, 3 different plastering firms. One was willing to take on this job. The $5,875 is $875 more than I can approve without asking council for approval. That's why this is in front of you this evening. I will point out, as Ryan reserved the Marilla for a wedding, the party looked up at the plaster molding. They're like, that's going to be fixed before our special day, right? And we said, well, we'll see. But, you know, it is something that has to be addressed now. Todd Heckman and Ryan are working on the flat roof in that area right now to make sure it drains properly. So we're you know, the source of the issue's been corrected, I guess I would say. But if you don't take care of plaster over time, this is what happens. And by a few years, it's probably been decades of neglect on that stuff.
Thank you, Joel. Ryan or Parker, did you have anything to add? We covered it all?
I think we've covered everything.
When is the special day?
It's December, I believe. So it's tight. There are still a few other events that would like to take place in the Marilla that I'm sure if they saw that it would be, is that going to be fixed as well?
Okay. Thank you. Council, are there any other questions for staff? No? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please? And we're getting a motion to approve the purchase order for $5,875.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. Well, it looks like we're done. Going down to number 13, communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Joel, do you have anything tonight?
Just real quickly, sticking with the Griswold, the floor is in the process of being refinished right now in the Marilla Lounge. The plaster job, when that's done, we will move on to painting that room, following recommendations of a local art gallery that says this really needs to be neutral color, and then we'll be looking at, doing a different lighting system in there that, can reflect and, highlight, works of art that we plan on hanging and showcasing in that room as we try to convert that space to more of an intimate, public gathering area. I would say if you didn't get here before, we had a great turnout for Jim Richardson. His family was very appreciative that the city, did that little reception for him. It was like a little neighborhood block party because I think all of his neighbors showed up. So that was kind of, fun and exciting to see happening. We are the victim right now of microchip shortage, supply chain shortage. Our vehicle deliveries will start coming in or trickling in, starting in December with some of our larger pickup trucks for the DPW through that lease program that council approved earlier this year. We lost out on getting Tahoes for the upcoming year. They only took so many orders and we did not cut that bar. Our police department really needs newer vehicles. So we are pricing out Ford Interceptors, which are the Explorers, and Ford F-150s that are roomier, and they're leaning towards the Ford F-150s. I'm laying that all on, that's a decision for Jay to make, as long as the cost is appropriate. So we looked at everything.
But they do caps on those?
No, they do caps on the cover. So not a truck cap up high like what I have on my Ford Ranger, but a flat thing with lockable storage. So all their gear can be there, pull out quick.
It's the number one selling truck in it.
Yeah, right.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Useless
Ye-
information that I know.
It's a different one, I guess, if Rachel's correct on that one. They actually went to the part where they went up to an Allegan County deputy was at a road test, and they had it on the course, and the county deputy filmed it for them, and, they've done their research into this vehicle, and it's a solid vehicle for our police department. But I wanted to update you, if you start asking me, in emails, where are these vehicles we were supposed to be getting, Joel? Because eventually that's going to trickle back up to your brain, and you're going to want to ask me about that stuff.
And no one ever expects a truck.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Sneak right
driving in Texas, I've been popped numerous times.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Ryan, Michaela, Parker, anything? No? Tracy, anything in the back? Okay. Rachel, anything from you tonight?
As my time is winding down, a few of the things that I've learned throughout my years is that if your policy or your ordinance or your whatever is not working, and you constantly have to give variances or waivers of things, time to address the ordinance and/or the policy. So the inconsistency, again, with what we charge people, to me is a concern across the board. So I would look into that. I would offer y'all, look into that once I'm gone.
Snap. Tracy. How about you, Teresa?
Nothing.
Roger?
I noticed this week as we look out our bedroom window that the holiday lights are going up on the trees downtown, and they're so pretty, and that looks great. And we've got new Christmas decorations this year. Is that true? Is that, or no? Did we not get?
The DDA had those discussions, and what we decided was that we were going to hold off on the purchase of new holiday decor until after the streetscape is finished, at least on Brady and Locust Street, and then we'll look into those new decorations, so.
Well, I've loved our old decorations too, so I'm glad to see them going up, and it's exciting that we're coming into that time of year.
Dave, how about from you tonight?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay. And I don't have anything either. Yes. Yeah, Parker, could you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, that's a merchant-led initiative.
Yes, so exactly that, a merchant-led initiative that is developed out of what was the Ladies' Night Out event that Positively Allegan, Downtown Allegan held. They've now taken it into their own hands. It'll be called Moonlight Madness, taking place on October 23rd. 22nd, thank you. Late night shopping, extended shopping hours between the hours of 6 and 10. So late night, handful of businesses, I couldn't go down the list of specifics right now, but a handful of businesses and restaurants will be partnering up together to provide some shopping and dining entertainment in the late evening on a Friday night in downtown Allegan, so.
And it's opened up to all, not just ladies.
Yes, correct, correct. Yes.
That's That's what the moonlight will do to you. Okay,
I have one more thing, Mayor.
go ahead, Roger.
Offer congratulations to Mayor Andrus on her wedding this past weekend. It was a
Thank
lovely
you.
affair,
Thank you very much.
and it was a hopping party.
Thank you. It was a very good night, so. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:56.